so we are doing bicep curls. Everyone knows bicep curls. No, they don't actually. It's so what I'm gonna have to Gillian do is start with her hands palm forward. She's grasping the dumbbells, and I'm just gonna tell her to bend her arms and bring them up towards her shoulders. So while this is the correct action, basically there's a couple things that I'm gonna be looking for, and I'm gonna start working from the bottom to the top. So first thing I'm gonna look for is that her knees are slightly bent. What that's going to do is it's going to bring some shock absorption and stabilization to the movement. If she locks her knees out, then you tend to get this, the pelvis locks out, and sometimes you get a swaying action. So she's exaggerating, of course, but she's going to have a slight bend in her knees. Now with the knee bend, she can get her pelvis into a neutral position, use her abdominals to stabilize, and then now we can address sort of what's going on at the shoulder and the elbow. So body is stable, she's controlling that. She's not using her skeleton to lock out her joints to control her movement. So basically the cue that I like to use, I'm gonna come behind you here, is to keep the elbows sort of right by maybe her ribs. And it's almost like there's a rod going through her body that just kind of pins them in that location. They don't have to be glued to her body, they just need to not go back and forth. So go ahead and do your bicep curl again. So you can see that her elbows move very little. They don't go forward and back, whereas sometimes you'll notice people, when they bicep curl, go ahead and do the elbows lift forward, or they fold back sometimes. We've seen it all. And you'll notice now she's like moving at the ankle joint, right? So again, stabilize through the body. We'll draw those elbows back more, like aligned with the spine, and then she's just gonna lower and lift. Sounds like we're being picky, but it actually, by sticking with this technique, we're gonna get her biceps to work much harder than if she's using momentum. The other thing that I'm looking for is that her shoulders stay relaxed. Some people like to curl them forward. This happens when the weights are really heavy, right? Because then you're going to want to put the elbows into your rib cage and kind of tension them off, like use it as a fulcrum point. Sexy. So we're going to stand up nice and tall, abs are in, elbows are by the side, and then, like I said, shoulders are relaxed and chest is open, so we can really get through the bicep. The last thing is range of motion, how high she's going to come up. So go ahead and come up. She might actually find that if the elbows stay back, they don't get all the way to the shoulder. That's just a natural function of the way her joints work. Some people have big biceps and they're just gonna get stuck there.
Size of my pipes.
Yes. Yeah. So if you only get to like just in front of your shoulder, that's okay. As long as you're squeezing it, you feel the movement, and you haven't done this weird thing with the elbow. Otherwise, she could get closer to the shoulder, but then this happens, right? So again, we've deviated from that first cue there. So this is a bicep curl, just what we're looking for here. So what I'll have you do is face the camera.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about sort of what we call a carrying angle. Yay, carrying angle. So for men, they tend to have their biceps more like directly straight down from their shoulders.
Yeah.
Some women, there's hypotheses as to like why this is, like we have big hips. I don't know. I don't, but so if you find that when you're doing your bicep curls, they kind of come out, there's like a gap between your hand and your thigh, totally fine. You don't have to force it into this position just because you've seen that's how some people are doing it. That's their anatomy, right? So Gillian's carrying angle's pretty manly. It's
I'm a rectangle.
So she knows her body. She knows that's whereas mine tends to be a little bit further out, right? Again, just whatever works for you. So, any additions?
Yes, wrists.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. This is a big one. Sometimes people haven't got the grip strength for the weight, or they're not aware of how to grip it. So they'll do something like this. They'll do something like this.
Yep.
I mean, unless you're really working on that forearm strength, or if you want to work on the biceps. So the important thing is keeping the back of the hand in line with your forearm.
Yeah. And I've seen people who are thinking, I'll double whammy, so I'll start here and then I'll curl as I curl.
And again, that's going to get a lot through the forearm.
Yeah. And yeah, if it's a weak point and that's where you want to work, we would probably separate that exercise out into just dedicated forearm curls.
Yeah.
But again, if that's your strategy, that's the strategy you've intentionally chosen, as opposed to I'm just bicep curling.
Yeah, and the other thing, shoulders are relaxed, but you don't want to feel like the weight is dragging your arm out of the socket, right? So you don't want to have it too much. You may start to feel a little tension in your neck. So your shoulders are just nice and relaxed, because otherwise you might find yourself doing this or just hanging. That's about it.
And I think the last thing that probably, one thing that you'll also see is some people will do a turn, right? So they may start the bicep curl here and then rotate it as they bring it up to the shoulder. Not wrong, it's an option. You get, brachioradialis, you get some other forearm muscles that cross the joint into the forearm, as well as bicep. Again, just for me, personal preference, I like to separate out a bicep curl from a hammer curl.
Or a reverse.
Or a reverse curl, yeah. So again, there's nothing wrong with combining them if that feels really natural.
Yeah.
Go for it, or you're short on time.
Or alternate.
Yeah, but so that's just straight up bicep curl.